The Secret School, Chapter 15. Ma! Pa! Ida cried as she rushed into the barn, Shelby in her arms. Mr. Jordan's called a school board meeting for tomorrow evening without telling people. It's to make sure the school stays shut down. Now hold on, her father said. If he didn't tell, how'd you know? He and Mrs. Bidson were shearing sheep. Mrs. Bidson was holding them steady while Mr. Bidson did the clipping. Breathless, Ida explained about Herbert's visit and what he had said. That doesn't seem very fair, Mrs. Bidson said when Ida had finished. I have to tell everyone that it's happening, Ida said. Get people to come to the meeting, and it's tomorrow night. Oh, why can't we have a telephone like they do in town? Honey, there's not one soul in the valley that has a telephone. Mr. and Mrs. Bidson released the sheep they had been shearing. For a moment, he just stood there as if not sure what had happened to him. Then, with a shake of his head and a bleat, he bolted off. Can I take the car and go now with Felix? Ida, there's so much going on, right? Please, Ida cried, her eyes filling with tears. This is the most important thing in my whole life. This summer, after school, all day, all the time, I'll work double hard, triple hard. I'll take care of... Ida, her mother interrupted sharply, your pa's not trying to drive a bargain. You can see what's going on. You're needed here. I'm sorry, Ida managed, gazing at her parents, her tears streaming. Please, please, she implored. I have to tell people about the meeting. I have to. Can I go, please? Mr. and Mrs. Bidson exchanged looks. Finally, Mrs. Bidson said, Of course you can. Don't worry, Mr. Bidson added. We'll go to the meeting too. When did you say it was? Tomorrow night, Ida said, thrusting the baby into her mother's arms, then flying out of the barn. Felix, I need you, Felix. Felix was behind the house, stacking small logs for the kitchen stove. She grabbed his hands and raced for the car. What's the matter? Felix asked as they drove down the long driveway. Ida explained the best she could. And we have to tell everyone in the valley, she concluded. Maybe Tom could put it on his radio, Felix suggested. I don't think it works that way, she said. Then, in a burst of inspiration, she cried, but he could print us up a circular. Come on, clutch and gas. Ja, it's Ida and Felix Bidson, Tom's mother said, greeting the two of them at the porch door. Apron around her waist, hands white with flour. She was a short, heavy-set woman with plump red cheeks. Not seen you for the age of the dog. Though you know I hear all about you, Ida, from our own Tom. You two come right on in. My pleasure. And your mother? She's good? They're fine, Mrs. Cole. I'm looking for Tom. I have to speak to him right away. Sure you do, Miss Ida. Tom says you're always doing fine things at the school, being the good teacher, he says. Mrs. Cole, Ida said, unable to contain her excitement. Something important is happening. She told the woman about the meeting. For shame. That's Mr. Jordan himself, always thinking he's in charge of the whole world. A regular Kaiser. We had better be there too. Can I speak to Tom? You can. He's over to the barn with his father. You know where that is, I think. Thank you, Mrs. Cole. Go right on now. Mr. Felix, you find Mary and then come to the kitchen for something. Miss Ida, say hello to your mother. Ida flew out of the house, across the yards, and into the Coles barn. It was a large structure, sweet with the smell of stacked hay. Tom was on his back under a truck that he and his father were repairing. Mr. Cole was kneeling by his side, handing tools. Who's that there? He demanded as Ida approached. Mr. Cole was a large man with big features and a loud voice rich with a German accent, like his wife's. It's me, Mr. Cole, Ida Bidson. Oh, I see you now, Ida. For sure that's you. How do you do, Tom? He said, giving a poke to his son. Here comes a visitor for you, I think. Not me. Tom pushed himself up from beneath the truck and looked up. Hi, he called. Tom, Ida said, too excited to make small talk. Mr. Jordan's holding a secret school board meeting tomorrow to make sure the school stays closed. We have to get people there. You need to print up a circular. What's all this now? Mr. Cole asked. Ida explained what Herbert had come and said. Tom, if you print up something, we could spread it around so people in the valley would come. It might help. I guess I could, Tom said, but Ida, I have to do this. He looked to his father. No, no, said Mr. Cole. That's all right. I understand. You've got yourself a good idea, Ida. The missus and I will go out to the meeting too, for sure. Tom, you do like Ida said. I'll finish here myself. Tom and Ida headed back to the house. Tom asked, what's the circular to say? I hadn't thought of that, Ida admitted. She considered for a moment. Maybe school meeting. Is school to be open or closed? Wednesday, 7 o'clock. Could you do all that? Tom thought for a minute, counting on his fingers. What are you counting? O's. Remember? I don't have a whole lot of them. Can we try anyway? Sure. 1 hour later, they pulled the first circular from the press. Meeting at school. School, pen, or closed. Wed, 7 p.m. Tom handed it to Ida. Think it'll do? It'll have to. They printed off 20 sheets that agreed who would go where, Tom or on Ruckus, and Ida and Felix in the car, to places farther away. Oh, Tom, do you think people will come? Ida asked as she opened the car door for Felix. Don't know, he said. Worth trying, though. And at the meeting, you're going to have to say something. Me? Why? The teacher always talks at board meetings, and, in case you forgot, you're the teacher.